Okay. Hello, and thank you for joining us for this overview of the application components for Round 6 of the Transformative Climate Communities program. During this presentation, we will provide a high-level overview of a few topics to prepare potential applicants to begin a TCC application. This is our agenda for today. We will cover TCC Round 6 eligibility requirements, application components for our 3 grant types, planning, project development, and implementation, and lastly, ending by reviewing threshold documents that applicants will need to submit with their applications. Before we begin, let's go over common acronyms that we'll be using as we discuss the program. The first is SGC, and that is the Strategic Growth Council. TCC, Transformative Climate Communities Program. PG, Planning Grant. PDG, Project Development Grant. IG, Implementation Grant. TA, Technical Assistance. And lastly, CGS, Collaborative Governance Structure. Now we've run through acronyms. Let's introduce who is eligible for the TCC program. Eligible lead applicants must be based in California and must be one of the following organizations: either a California Native American tribe, a tribally owned nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit, a special district, a joint powers authority, a public utility, or locally public-owned utility, a mutual water company, or a public or local agency. Specific definitions of these organizations can be found in our guidelines. Private shareholder corporations are not eligible as lead applicants or co-applicants. Eligible co-applicants who will be project leads can be found in Appendix B for each strategy. The program's different grant types have different minimum co-applicant requirements. Planning grants must have at least one co-applicant, and project development and implementation grants must have a minimum of 2 co-applicants. We strongly encourage applications to have more than the minimum number of co-applicants. For additional information on eligible applicants and applicant eligibility requirements, please review Section 3.1 of the guidelines. This slide shows the definitions of tribal applicants from the TCC guidelines. Feel free to pause the video to read if this applies to you. All nonprofits who do not meet the definition of a tribally owned nonprofit are still eligible to apply to TCC, but they will generally not be eligible for the tribal funding goal, priority points for tribes, or tribal modifications. Federally and non-federally recognized California Native American tribes are eligible to apply to TCC. We strongly encourage tribes to apply. We intend to award at least 1 grant of each grant type to eligible tribal applicants and will also award priority points to tribal applicants. Built into our guidelines are tribal modifications and special considerations, which include automatic flexibility for certain requirements and further modified requirements by request. Lead applicants who are tribes or tribally owned nonprofits are eligible for these modifications. Tribes will not be required to sign a limited waiver of sovereign immunity to receive reimbursement payments. If a tribe is receiving TCC payments via advance pay, SGC may require a limited waiver of sovereign immunity. Tribal applicants are eligible for individualized application technical assistance. This is a list of modifications that automatically apply flexibility for tribal applicants. Items with an asterisk are where further modifications are allowed by request. Tribal applicants have flexibility with the public agency support requirements, with more detail in the guidelines. Tribal lead applicants generally do not have to include co-applicants, and if there are no co-applicants, a collaborative governance structure is not required. For tribal lead applicants with co-applicants, the collaborative governance structure must respect tribal sovereignty and data confidentiality, among other requirements. In terms of project area requirements, tribal applicants are not subject to the maximum project size requirements and may have a discontinuous project boundary. All federally recognized tribal lands are automatically eligible TCC project areas. SGC is committed to honoring tribal data sovereignty, financial information, and traditional ecological knowledge. May be excluded from project deliverables and application materials. Tribal applicants may request modifications to the Displacement Avoidance Plan and the Workforce and Economic Development Plan. Tribal applicants also have flexibility with cost requirements. Tribes are exempt from leverage funding requirements, can have higher indirect cost rates, and can spend more grant funds on water supply and wastewater infrastructure. Lastly, the pro-housing policy incentive does not apply to applicants located within federally recognized tribal land. Tribal applicants who this applies to will get the maximum points in the incentive category. Next, we can dive into how these entities will work together within a collaborative governance structure. The collaborative governance structure is an important part of the TCC program. Collaborative governance is the framework for collaboration with lead and co-applicants, residents, leaders, and community organizations. The structure defines how the lead applicant and the co-applicants will collaboratively work together to implement the project over the lifetime of the grant. By describing the partnership structure and roles and responsibilities of each co-applicant, as well as establishing processes for handling disputes, adding and removing members of the collaborative, and outlining community representatives' roles. The lead applicant and all co-applicants will jointly develop and sign a collaborative governance agreement. Those applying for project development or implementation grants will submit the new collaborative governance agreement worksheet with their application and formalize the agreement within 90 days of contract execution. The Collaborative Governance Agreement worksheet is a simplified version of the final Collaborative Governance Agreement. We will discuss the Collaborative Governance Agreement worksheet later in the presentation. For additional details on collaborative governance requirements, refer to section 3.2 of the guidelines.
Now that we've gone through eligibility requirements, we'll talk about project area requirements. The TCC team has developed an online mapping tool for applicants to see whether your project areas are eligible for TCC. As an applicant, you can draw your own project areas on the map, run analyses, export the boundary, and print a PDF of the project area. You can automatically see numbers like the total project area size and overlaps of disadvantaged and/or low-income communities within the project area. Each applicant type, incorporated, tribal, unincorporated, has its own page with relevant data layers. You can access the mapping tool on your browser, and we recommend using Microsoft Edge. We have also created story maps to help guide you through using the mapping tool. We recommend you review the relevant guide before starting on the mapping tool, as it will address any confidentiality concerns. There are separate story maps for incorporated areas, unincorporated areas, and tribal areas. Applicants whose project areas are in unincorporated or tribal areas are eligible for technical assistance. Links to the mapping tool and tutorials are available on the TCC Round 6 webpage. Next, we will cover the different project area types and their specific requirements. First, we will start with the requirements for incorporated project areas. Incorporated project areas must meet the minimum disadvantaged communities requirement using Cal EnviroScreen 4.0 data. Disadvantaged communities, otherwise known as DACs, are geographic areas most burdened by socioeconomic, public health, and environmental hazards, making them more sensitive to pollution. The minimum required proportion of DACs in each project area is 51%. The remainder of the project area must include areas with low-income communities or households. To determine if your project area meets the minimum DAC eligibility requirements and all other project eligibility, review Section 3.3 of the guidelines. If you are using the TCC developed mapping tool to determine project area eligibility, the mapping tool only shows areas that are eligible DACs. Next, we will dive into requirements for tribal areas. Lead applicants who qualify as eligible tribal applicants have flexibility in meeting project area requirements. Lead applicants that are California Native American tribes or tribally owned nonprofits are not subject to project area limits for implementation grants. Project areas may be any size for all grant types, provided all eligibility requirements are met. Additionally, tribal applicants may propose non-continuous project areas, but the non-continuous project areas must meet two requirements. First, all areas must be located within the same region. Second, if multiple tribes are submitting a single application, at least some of the proposed activities must involve and directly benefit all tribes participating in the application. For more information on project area requirements for tribal applicants, please review the tribal applicant subsection in Section 3.3 of the guidelines. Tribal applicants are eligible for technical assistance and may request your technical assistance provider support to create your project area files using the TCC mapping tool for tribal applicants. The TCC mapping tool is available on our Round 6 webpage with a resource specifically for tribal applicants. Okay, so now we will dive into project area requirements for disadvantaged unincorporated communities. A disadvantaged unincorporated community is defined as an unincorporated area that meets one or more of the established DAC community criteria. Applicants may demonstrate DAC designation and eligibility in several ways. The first is through prior designation through a TCC planning grant or project development grant. Second, applicants may demonstrate eligibility through verification by the Local Agency Formation Commission or equivalent agency, plus CalEnviroScreen DAC eligibility. Third, applicants can show their project area has CalEnviroScreen DAC eligibility, contains a parcel of unincorporated communities at a density of at least 250 parcels per square mile, or is a census-designated place with at least 250 residents, and is within the hard-to-count census block group. Finally, applicants can self-identify as a disadvantaged community with local data, which we will cover on the next slide. Some of these, as indicated with an asterisk, can be verified using the TCC mapping tool. The guidelines and the story map provide more guidance on how to determine your eligibility, and technical assistance providers are available to help. To demonstrate disadvantaged unincorporated eligibility using the local data submission process, communities must demonstrate all of the following eligibility factors: pollution or environmental burden, socioeconomic burden, and population density. Local data submissions may be quantitative, qualitative, or a combination of both. Until July 31st, applicants may submit the local data to SGC for review and pre-approval determination. SGC cannot guarantee reviews and pre-approvals after July 31st. It is important to note that pre-approval only confirms that the minimum eligibility requirements have been met. It does not determine the overall competitiveness of an application for funding. All applicants may request pre-approval of project areas by emailing TCC with your shapefile of the project area. TCC will guarantee a review for submissions by July 31st. If your project area is not eligible, we will provide brief feedback so you may refine your project area before submitting the application. Implementation grant applicants may also submit your project area boundary for review as part of the pre-proposal. The pre-proposal deadline was June 30th. You may still email TCC with the data until July 31st. Pre-approval of project areas only confirms minimum eligibility and is not a determination of your application's competitiveness. Implementation grant applicants whose project area is predominantly in rural areas may also request exceptions to the continuous and 15 square mile size limit. Requests may be granted on a case-by-case basis. Lead applicants may also submit the request as part of the pre-proposal. For more information pertaining to project eligibility for all grant types, we highly recommend reviewing Section 3.3 of the guidelines. Additionally, TCC has available mapping resources and guides on the webpage that are very useful for applicants.
Moving along, we will now discuss advance payment. Certain applicants may be eligible to request advance payment under this program. Current eligible entities include federally recognized tribes and 501c3 nonprofit organizations. After award, grantees seeking advance payment should be prepared to complete several requirements as part of the process. This includes submitting an advance pay request form, providing documentation demonstrating eligibility, and presenting a spending plan prior to the disbursement of funds. Recipients will also be responsible for tracking expenditures and any interest earned on advance funds to ensure compliance with grant requirements. It is important to note that any costs incurred before grant execution are not eligible for reimbursement or advance payment. Now we will cover application technical assistance available during the application period. SGC will provide third-party application technical assistance, or TA, to eligible applicants across all grant types to help support the development of strong and competitive applications. Priority for TA will be given to tribal applicants, TCC programs, as defined by TCC programs, as well as applicants with project areas located in disadvantaged unincorporated communities. Applicants interested in receiving third-party application technical assistance must submit the technical assistance request form by July 31st. Our staff will connect eligible applicants with TA on a rolling basis. Technical assistance providers may support applicants in several areas, including coordination, review of materials, financial analysis, and budget development, project feasibility assessments, project area identification, and project area mapping. Because of funding and provider capacity are limited, technical assistance may not be available for all applicants. Additional requests may be considered on a case-by-case basis depending on available resources. In addition to targeted TA support, SGC staff will provide general application assistance to all applicants through supportive materials such as pre-recorded videos on key application topics, sample materials, guidance documents, story maps, and office hours. All general application materials are available on the TCC Round 6 webpage.
Next, we will move into the TCC Round 6 application components. This section provides an overview of the major elements applicants will need to prepare and submit as part of a complete application package. Let's go over the Round 6 timeline. Applications opened on May 29th, 2026. If your implementation grant proposal involved Strategy 13, Other Climate Innovation, the proposal must be submitted by June 15th. On June 30th, pre-proposals for implementation grants were due. By July 31st, the request form for application technical assistance will close. Lastly, all applications for the 3 grant types are due September 30th, 2026. We do not accept late applications. After the application review period, we anticipate the Strategic Growth Council will make awards in spring 2027. New to Round 6, we require all applications and pre-proposals to be submitted through the web platform Submittable. Links to the submittable applications for each grant type and to the full application materials are posted on the TCC Round 6 webpage. Lead applicants will need to create a free account or use existing Google or Facebook credentials to submit to the application. There are collaboration options for all applicants to work on Submittable together. However, only the lead applicant may submit any forms. Please review the Submittable instructions before beginning. Applicants should be aware of key dates listed throughout the application period that pertain to submittable submissions. A few of them are listed on the screen. As we went over in the timeline, there are components of the application that are due before the final application is due. The pre-proposal was due for all implementation grant applicants on June 30th. If your implementation grant contains the other climate innovation strategy, that proposal was due on June 15th, which is before the pre-proposal is due. Modification requests for tribal applicants and local data submissions for disadvantaged unincorporated communities are due on July 31st for pre-approval, but may also be submitted with the final application.
Now let's talk about the different TCC grant types. We'll go over planning grants first. These grants focus on preparing for future programs to benefit communities. Planning grants are intended for communities that need funding to begin or expand community-based planning work prior with a goal of eventually implementing climate resilient projects. Planning grants must address one or more of the TCC transformative elements. Planning grant terms are 2 years and have a post-award consultation phase of 3 to 6 months. After the awarding of funds, leverage funding is not required for this grant type. Now that we have covered the general purpose of a planning grant, we can dive into the planning grant application components. Planning grant applicants must answer a list of narrative questions with the application on submittable and provide supporting documentation where applicable. All co-applicants must provide a signed letter of commitment that outlines their role and responsibilities as they pertain to the TCC grant application proposal. Through answering the narrative questions, applicants will describe their community vision for transformation, how the grant activities address the TCC program objectives, identify the project area, and more. Applicants must submit a work plan and budget. The work plan must clearly describe each task, timelines, and deliverables corresponding to the grant activities. The budget must detail all costs broken down by line item. This budget should account for all staff pay and benefits, costs directly related to implementation of grant activities, contingency cost, and indirect cost. Planning grants have no project area size requirements. However, project areas must still meet all requirements as previously described in the presentation. Project areas may not overlap with any project areas from current or previous TCC implementation grant awards. For the tribal applicants who are applying for planning grants, please note that if the project area includes areas outside of tribal jurisdiction, letters of support from the relevant city or county are needed. These letters of support are only needed if the city or county is not a co-applicant. Planning grant applications will be scored out of 105 points across 4 criteria: objectives and vision, transformative elements, and project identification and capacity and priority points. To be scored, planning grant applicants must meet program threshold requirements, which include general completeness, applicant eligibility, and project area eligibility. Detailed breakdowns of the scoring criteria and how to meet threshold requirements can be found in section 9.5 of the guidelines. We highly encourage applicants to refer to this section and use the planning grant application checklist to ensure application completeness and eligibility has been met prior to submitting your application.
Our next type of grant is our project development grants. Project development grants help to further advance community climate goals, helping to fund relevant initiatives which have already been planned. These activities include demonstrations, pilots, and assessment, which are all preparation and development prior to implementing climate solutions. Project development grants fund activities that have been informed by previous community planning and engagement. At minimum, proposed activities must address community engagement and climate adaptation and climate resilience. Applicants may also address additional transformative elements, as applications will be evaluated based on the strength and integration of the transformative elements. Like planning grants, project development grant terms are 2 years and have a post-award consultation phase of 3 to 6 months after the awarding of funds. There is no leverage funding required for a project development grant. To apply for a project development grant, the requirements are like planning grants, with the addition of documentation that demonstrates the lead applicant's financial capacity, documentation that demonstrates the lead applicant and co-applicant's management capacity, a signed collaborative governance agreement worksheet, and a requirement of at least 2 co-applicants. Additional requirements may apply if your application includes water supply or wastewater infrastructure projects or pilot projects. As with planning grants, there is no project area size requirement. However, project areas must still meet all eligibility requirements as previously described in the presentation. Project areas may overlap with previously awarded planning grants, but must not overlap with previously awarded implementation grants. Also like planning grants, the application for project development grants will be scored out of 105 points across 4 criteria. These 4 criteria are objectives and vision, transformative elements, project design and feasibility, capacity, and priority points. Threshold requirements are like planning grants and encompass all the planning grant thresholds with additional requirements for capacity, collaborative governance structure, and priority policies. All the scoring criteria and threshold details are available in section 9.6 of the guidelines.
Finally, our largest grants are our implementation grants, which aim to fund proposals that coordinate multiple projects aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well as achieving community benefits. Implementation grants are the best option for communities that have already completed visioning, planning, and scoping alongside robust community engagement and will be ready to break ground on multiple projects with minimal additional pre-development work. Timeline-wise, implementation grants have a 2 to 3 month post-award consultation process to lightly edit the pre-development phase work plan and budget, as well as to finalize their grant agreements. The grant then has a 6-year term, which includes a 9-month funded pre-development phase to complete a detailed work plans and budget for the implementation phase, and to conduct any remaining pre-development work. A 3-month administrative transition period follows the 9-month pre-development phase, and a 4-year implementation phase to complete all activities, and a 1-year evaluation phase where outcome monitoring and grant closeout will take place. Implementation grants are set up to maximize benefits for the community with SGC's investments and meet our climate goals. First, applicants must develop a shared vision statement that is specific to the community, describes the community's vision for transformation, and addresses all 3 TCC program objectives. TCC has 13 strategy types, which are specific action plans for community outcomes, such as transit access, solar installation, and more. Each strategy includes eligible project activities and cost that can be done within the TCC grant. We encourage you to refer to our guidelines for the full list of strategies listed in Appendix B. The vision statement and larger grant must propose at least 3 TCC strategies, and applicants must then propose at least 3 projects that fall under those strategies. Additionally, implementation grants must incorporate all 6 transformative elements. Finally, TCC has determined policy requirements of which applicants must define how the proposed grant activities will be addressed. Our policy priorities address consistency with existing local land use and transportation plans, high-speed rail connectivity if applicable, water supply and wastewater infrastructure, air pollution reduction and mitigation, and pro-housing policies. Information on how to comply with program policy priorities can be found in section 10.19 of the guidelines. Of the selected projects, at least one project must directly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and all projects must either reduce greenhouse gases or contribute directly to meaningful public health benefits. Most strategies have pre-development requirements, which are items that are not due by the application due date, but applicants must complete during the pre-development phase for their projects prior to gaining access to implementation phase funds. Applicants must complete the projects during the 4-year implementation phase. Implementation grants require 6 transformative elements, as we've mentioned, which we will go through in order on this slide. The first is grant evaluation. 3% of the grant budget must go to third-party grant evaluation partner who will document and track TCC project progress and outcomes. The partner will evaluate the overall TCC grant progress and provide technical assistance for the lead grantee and partners. If awarded, applicants may propose their own evaluation partner for approval or select a list of pre-qualified TCC evaluation partners during the pre-development phase. For the application, applicants must set aside 3% of their budget for grant evaluation, but do not need to do anything else. The second transformative element is community engagement. Applicants must engage residents, businesses, and partners in the project area throughout all stages of the application development and implementation to ensure that TCC funds provide meaningful and direct benefit to communities. Implementation grant applicants must provide a community engagement plan that outlines community engagement already completed and plans for future community engagement during the lifetime of the grant. Appendix C of the guidelines contains sample community engagement activities and best practices. Third, transformative element is the displacement avoidance plan. The lead applicant and partners must take action to establish policies and programs to avoid displacing households and small businesses within the project area. Activities must be guided by robust community engagement. Fourth, implementation grants must include a workforce development and economic opportunity plan. This must outline ways to create high-quality career pathways for residents in the project area and provide economic opportunity through high-quality jobs, all tied to TCC projects. Fifth, projects must incorporate climate adaptation and resilience through the application. The overall proposal should consider or respond to climate-related impacts and risks to vulnerable populations throughout all of its components. Lastly, TCC implementation grants require leverage funding. Most applicants will need to identify leverage funding equating to 50% of the total requested funding amount. Applicants who qualify for the disadvantaged unincorporated community funding goal have a leverage requirement of 25%. Applicants who qualify for the tribal funding goal do not have a leverage funding requirement. Leverage funding does not need to be committed by the application date, but must be secured by the end of the pre-development phase. If an applicant cannot secure the required leverage funding by the end of the pre-development phase, they will not be able to access implementation phase funding. Implementation grant applications are scored out of 220 points. All applicants will be scored out of 210 points for categories that cover objective and vision, capacity, transformative elements, projects, priority points, and additional incentive points. Finalists will be invited for mandatory virtual interviews, which are scored out of 10 points. The threshold requirements for implementation grants are like that of project development grants, with additional requirements for strategies and projects. Section 9.7 of the guidelines has a detailed breakdown of scoring criteria and threshold requirements that we recommend implementation grant applicants review.
Now let's break down the implementation grant phases. All application requirements must be completed during the 4-month application period. We anticipate announcing awardees in spring 2027. After grant execution, awardees will transition into a post-award consultation process, which will last 2 to 3 months and end with the execution of the grant agreement. The first 9 months or less of the grant term is the pre-development phase. During the pre-development phase, applicants will have access to a portion of their grant funds for staff time and limited pre-development work. No implementation work can take place prior to completing the pre-development phase. During this phase, grantees must complete TCC pre-development requirements for each project and plan and for the application overall. These items include refining the scope of work, developing detailed budgets for the implementation phase of each project and plan, developing detailed project designs and implementation plans, securing permits, and meeting strategy-specific requirements. Once the grantee has met all of the pre-development requirements, SGC will amend the grant agreement to include the work plans and budgets for the implementation phase, at which time the grantee can begin implementation work. If a grantee fails to meet the pre-development requirements by the end of the 9-month pre-development phase, they will not receive funding for the implementation phase. If a grantee meets all pre-development requirements in less than 9 months, they can proceed to the implementation phase sooner and have a longer implementation phase. Pre-development requirements for each project are listed in the guidelines in Appendix B. During the application, applicants report on progress they have already made towards the pre-development requirements, which will improve their feasibility score. If you are not confident that you can meet all pre-development requirements within 9 months of receiving TCC pre-development funding, that project is not ready to be included in an implementation grant application. You may want to consider applying for a project development grant instead. During the implementation phase, grantees will conduct all project and plan work. Transformative plans should be funded for the duration of the implementation phase. The final year of the grant term will be a 1-year evaluation phase for the lead grantee, partners, and evaluation partner to conclude their evaluation, reporting, and grant administration work. So what does an implementation grant application actually entail? The TCC Implementation Grant application includes narrative questions on a range of topics, including, but not limited to, vision and objectives, applicant capacity, identifying community needs, project and plans design, and more. Applicants will submit work plans and budgets detailing anticipated costs, timelines, and deliverables for their proposed projects using SGC-provided templates. Applicants will need to demonstrate their financial and management capacity to administer the grant and complete proposed activities. Applicants will also submit a collaborative governance agreement worksheet, which we will describe in depth in a few minutes. Additionally, applicants are required to submit strategy-specific requirements, a project area map, a leverage funding worksheet, a local planning consistency letter, and other threshold documentation. There are multiple references to the application requirements throughout the guidelines, but a good place for applicants to orient themselves with the materials required for the application is in Section 10 of the guidelines. The first step of the implementation grant application process is submitting the pre-proposal. All potential implementation grant applicants must submit a pre-proposal. This is for applicants to share with TCC staff a broad overview of their implementation concept, proposed projects and plans, and the applicant's overall vision. SGC will provide limited feedback on pre-proposals. Pre-proposal feedback will not affect the application score or disqualify you from submitting an application. The pre-proposal was due on June 30th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Time. Pre-proposals are not available for planning grants or project development grants. We have already covered project area eligibility in depth earlier in the presentation. On this slide, we will briefly highlight key components implementation grant applicants should pay special attention to. Unlike the other two grant types, implementation grants do have a project area size requirement. For rural areas, project areas can be up to 15 continuous square miles. In urban areas, project areas can be up to 5 continuous square miles. However, tribal applicants are exempt from these size requirements. In addition to the size, project areas also have a priority populations requirement. At least 51% of the project area must be designated as a disadvantaged community. Applicants should use the TCC mapping tool to determine the project area eligibility and to generate a PDF and shapefile of the project area to submit on Submittable. For tribal and unincorporated applicants, there are other ways to meet these requirements. We encourage applicants to view our tutorials on how to use the TCC mapping tool for more guidance.
We will now go over some of the required threshold documents applicants will need to submit with their applications. Threshold documents are the minimum documentation needed at the time of application to move forward in the scoring process. Applications that do not meet threshold will not be scored. First, we will cover the application, work plan, and budget. For both planning and project development grants, applicants must submit a detailed work plan and budget. These documents should include clear descriptions of tasks, timelines, and deliverables. And the budget must detail all costs by task and line item. When applicable, the budget should address staff costs dedicated to the grant, participant compensation, office supplies, and equipment. This is not an exhaustive list and may not apply to all application budgets. For additional guidance on what to include in the work plan and budget for planning and project development grants, refer to section 10.10 of the guidelines. Our staff have also created an example of a completed work plan that applicants can reference, and we have a workbooks video available on our Round 6 webpage. For implementation grants, applicants must include multiple work plans and budgets. First, they must have a work plan and budget for each project and transformative plan. So, for example, if you have 7 projects and the 3 required transformative plans, you will need 10 work plans and budgets total for this portion. Each work plan and budget will be completed in an Excel workbook template. Within the Excel workbook, applicants will also provide a detailed work plan and detailed budget for their staff time and pre-development work during the 9-month pre-development phase. This will only be lightly edited during the post-award consultation process before being inserted into the grant agreement. Finally, the Excel workbook includes a template for a less detailed work plan and budget for the 4-year implementation phase. These will be refined during the pre-development phase. Applicants will also submit the grantee cost workbook, which is the work plan and budget for the lead applicant for their grant administration work. The lead applicant is also responsible for submitting the summary budget workbook to provide an overview of and general information from each project and plan budget. We highly encourage you to refer to section 10.10 of the guidelines and view the workbook video and additional guidance on completing workbooks.
Next, we will cover requirements to demonstrate financial capacity. For planning grants, applicants must answer narrative questions about their financial capacity, but do not need to submit any supporting documentation. Project development and implementation grant lead applicants must answer narrative questions and submit copies of current annual organizational budgets, recent financial statements, any audit findings from the past 5 years, and, for nonprofits, the most recent federal Form 990 and IRS 501c3 tax determination letter. The application includes further guidance on each of these required documents. For all grant types, Applicants must answer narrative questions about their capacity to manage and implement the grant. For project development and implementation grant lead applicants, applicants must also submit documentation and narrative descriptions of similar work they have completed in California in the last 10 years, along with the name and contact information of one reference. Now we will dive into the Collaborative Governance Agreement worksheet. As mentioned, this component does not apply to planning grants. Planning grants are not required to form a formal collaborative governance structure and thus do not need to complete the Collaborative Governance Agreement worksheet. For project development and implementation grant applicants, forming a collaborative governance structure and signing the agreement is a requirement. To help applicants develop their collaborative governance structure and agreement, created a collaborative governance agreement worksheet and a collaborative governance for tribes worksheet. This worksheet is a tool meant to help applicants establish the procedures, norms, and expectations for all parties involved in the grant. In the worksheet, applicants will identify roles and responsibilities for partners, residents, and community members. Applicants will describe the plans for creating governance procedures such as dispute resolution, legal and financial provisions, transparent decision-making processes, and more. Lead applicants and co-applicants will work together to jointly develop and sign the worksheet. If an applicant is selected for an award, applicants will turn the terms outlined in the worksheet into a formal collaborative governance agreement no more than 90 days after contract execution. Finally, we have our leverage funding worksheet for implementation grant applicants. While leverage funding does not need to be secured by the application due date, the leverage funding worksheet is due at application. The worksheet is in the summary workbook for implementation grants. The worksheet is meant to identify potential and secured sources of leverage funds, detail their term start and end dates, and any steps being taken to secure the funding. For secured leverage funds, the applicant must submit a leverage funding commitment letter. If the grantee is chosen for an award, final leverage commitments must be secured during the pre-development phase. As a reminder, tribal applicants do not need leverage funding. Applicants who are eligible for the disadvantaged unincorporated community funding goal must secure leverage funding equal to 25% of requested TCC grant funds, and all other applicants must secure leverage funding equal to 50% of requested TCC grant funds. If an applicant does not secure the required leverage funding by the end of the pre-development phase, they will not be able to access implementation phase funding. Please see Section 7.7 of the TCC guidelines for more information on leverage funding. Thank you for joining us for this overview of the TCC application. Our key dates for our program are listed here for your reference, with all applications due at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Time on September 30th, 2026. If you have questions, the TCC team will be hosting office hours throughout the application period, and we would be happy to discuss your project within the bounds of our ability. Please reach out to the TCC email inbox if you need support, and sign up to our email list for additional resources and updates regarding the TCC application and program. If you are eligible for technical assistance, we strongly encourage you to fill out the technical assistance request form to get connected with the provider as soon as possible. And we look forward to seeing your applications in the fall.